Welcome to Cut to the Chase, where we talk about compelling legal, regulatory, and public interest information and news. Your host is Gregg Goldfarb, an attorney, entrepreneur, investor, and activist.
All right, folks, it's time for our favorite podcast, Cut to the Chase. I am here with Tyler Vail of Shunnarah Vail, and we're going to update you on Camp Lejeune because I know a lot of people are trying to get their head wrapped around what's going on with Camp Lejeune. Tyler, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Greg. Thank you. Good afternoon.
I know you're really all busy with the 3M stuff also, so I don't want to take too much time, but I know a lot of my audience is dying to hear. They saw a couple people settled. There's an expedited. There was this big agency report that was knocked down. So why don't we start from the top and just give us a rundown of like what's going on with the case? Where are we? Any rulings? Let her rip.
Yeah, Greg. And again, I'm not sure, when the last time you gave an update is, and this will probably mirror that last update because there's not a whole lot happening. What we know so far now, again, the data I'm providing may be a few weeks old, but we only get it released from the government once a month when we're getting information from the folks we're working with, the Department of Navy, Department of Justice. So what we have, there's well over 120,000 claims filed in the claims process stage. They've paid out, I believe, around 30. Made offers to maybe 50 people max, paid out, just a little over half of those. Most of the folks are rejecting the offers. They're being, represented by super good lawyers, qualified lawyers who much rather take their chance on the litigation side, But for this case, because we're dealing with a government agency, we got to let it run its course. You got to file that claim. You got to wait for either an acceptance, a denial, or that 6-month time period, the implied rejection before you can move on into the courts. So, man, still gummed up like it has been for a very long time, unfortunately.
All right. The 120,000 claims, that's like an administrative kind of thing. You got to go through first,
right?
6 months, whatever. How many are actually in court now, approximately? Do you have a head count?
100, less than 2,000.
Less than 2,000 are in court. All right. So I'm assuming nothing is teed up for trial.
Not yet, but it's getting close. The court put a really powerful leadership kind of group in place. Have nothing but high praise for the lawyers running this thing through Northern District in North Carolina. So pushing hard for trial dates. They're trying to get something, in the first half of 2024. Obviously, you brought up this latest ruling the judge made a few weeks ago. Magistrate there basically said this draft report, is not going to come into evidence in these trials. And maybe that's going to lead to an appeal, may slow it down a little bit. But they're still very hopeful to get some 2024 trials underway. The judge has selected the categories. We got really good, solid tier 1, cancer cases, Parkinson's cases they're about to tee up. We'd expect really good things from those.
All right. So is there any deadline? If somebody's out there, they're like, I was at Camp Lejeune, I had some issues. I didn't die. Should I get involved? Is it too late? Where are we at with that?
No, not too late at all, man. I would highly suggest they contact someone as quick as they can. The drop dead deadline, I believe August 10th of 24, we have to file the claim. But man, do your attorney a favor. Don't call them up on the 9th and tell them you want to get in. Give them a little leeway. Get those claims done. Let us check out a few things. So yeah, if you're out there, man, there's really no harm to do it, man. You're set on this deadline. Go ahead and get in. Let's see what happens. I mean, the values that the government has already agreed to pay are significant. When it comes to mass torts, mass tort cases settle on high volumes, average per case. It's tough to crack that 6-figure mark. It really is. There's a few cases that have in the past, but all these cases, the low end that the government's want to pay is $100,000 up to $450,000. And if you're suing on behalf of a family member that may have died from one of these, injuries they're looking at, they'll add another $100,000. So, for $550,000, it's worth having someone look at it. I can't speak for all plaintiffs' attorneys handling these cases, but I would say 95, 99% of them will talk to you free of charge. Call them up. Some really good folks leading this thing,
including yourself. And we'll give your information later on at the end of the show, how to reach out to you. So you said already that 30 have settled, 30 cases?
30? I believe around 30. Yeah, give or take a few have actually accepted the government offer. That's right.
And do you have any idea what the numbers were? Were they 6 figures? Were they less than
figures? Well, they fell in line exactly with what the government published. I think it was last September, say 4 or 5 months ago, they put out this elective option for a quick settlement for these cases. And they put out a chart. It put the values for what kind of case they were going to pay, how much they were going to pay based on how long someone was at Camp Lejeune, and the offers matched identical. Not a penny less, not a penny more.
So what was the top number?
There was a $450,000 case paid. Yeah.
Anything, what was the lowest number?
100,000.
100,000. All right. And so you said there were 50 offers made, 30 of which were accepted, 20
That's
were
right.
not.
That's my understanding. Again, this we're talking, late December numbers. In a couple weeks, those numbers may have changed. But, the point I'm trying to make is with over 100 and some thousand claims made, the fact that we're still only, almost a year and a half into this thing, and we're only talking about 30 to 50 offers being made, man, that's kind of the problem everyone has right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think that's pretty good compared to some of the others mass sorts out there, whatever, which could take 10 years. So was there a rhyme or reason about why these 50 were selected, or did these 50 initiate the process through the elective expedited pay route?
We cannot really we can't determine what there's no common thread. It was several different injuries, tier 1 and tier 2 injuries, several different law firms. A good friend of mine, I think, had the first 3 or 4 payments made. And, we were trying to say, okay, so when you filed these claims on the date, we were trying to say, was it date first? How fast were you in? And man, it was just all over the place. So I will say that in talking with the folks at the Department of the Navy, who's kind of our first tier contact there, the claim form and then the documents being submitted, they're having a high error rate as far as if they're not perfect, they can't even pass it through to get paid. So if there's one box, not filled out, if the documents, the medical proof you're submitting that they asked for is off just a little bit, or someone's name wasn't at the top of the record. She listed off probably 12 different deficiencies or problems, people's claims that seem just not really related to the claim itself. But like I said, if it's not perfect for them, they're going to kick it to the side. So a lot of that is, this one gentleman, like I said, I'm close with, he had 3 paid. The one was filed in like October of 22. One was filed in like January of 23, and a ton in between. So we couldn't really make sense of it. Yeah. All different injuries, all different periods of time they were there. So I wish we could narrow it down, because we'd focus just on those claims right now, but can't do it.
All right. So I'm assuming the judges, is there one judge that's making the pretrial rulings, or multiple?
It's being passed around a little bit. You have some magistrate judges there in North Carolina. I believe there's 4 Article 3 judges there, district court judges who are, I think everybody's kind of all hands on deck right now.
Is there one pretrial order that's basically laying out the roadmap for each of the cases?
Close.
Like, how much time you have to do whatever that you need to do?
Not quite in detail yet. I know the injuries have been selected, the different types of cases they want to try. Obviously, they're in a huge evidentiary fight right now, dealing with this draft report, the CDC has had, the ATSDR, they want to put out this report. And, it's one of those things, we don't know what it says, right? It's a draft. We haven't seen it. The defendants identified it, on some discovery, but it was on their privilege log. And so when we see that, like in most cases, when someone's trying to hide something or not give something, it must help our side. Yeah. And what we will do, what we expect it to do, is really, increase the number of injuries that the government will be willing to maybe compensate people for. Right now, they're really tailoring it down. They have 9 injuries, that they want to pay for. But based on, 20 plus other studies in the past, there's at least 17 to 20 known, injuries and ailments related to exposures to some of these industrial chemicals that all these folks are exposed to. So, we're trying to say the ATSDR should dictate the injury list. And, it's just a fight back and forth. I think everyone knows at the end of the day, the government included, they're going to have to expand this list of injuries to include a lot more veterans and a lot more family members of veterans if they want this litigation to go away. If not, it's going to be around forever.
Okay, so you got a draft report from an agency, and from what I read, it's the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, which I never heard. All right, and so basically the government says this report exists, but we don't have to produce it because of a certain privilege, like
Well,
attorney-client work privilege. What was their privilege?
they're saying it's still a draft document, has not been peer reviewed as is required for most, studies or scientific evidence to be admissible into court, right? Like we can't just go hire some group to make some preliminary study and present it and rely on it and have everything go in our favor. But what we can do is, have this report sent out peer reviewed by a bunch of neutral individuals who either agree with the conclusions and the methodology that was done or disprove it and say, no, this does not matter. So what the governor is saying is this report is new, just kind of came out. It has not been peer reviewed yet. How much time is that going to take? We don't know. They would like to drag their feet and probably make it take a very long time. I'd love the peer review process to go through quickly so we can get the benefit of all this work that was done and all the results that come from it. While these trials are before they even start or while they're at least going on. So they're saying that this report, and the judge agrees that, hey, this is not a peer reviewed report. It wouldn't pass muster. You wouldn't get past any kind of Dahlberg, challenge if someone wanted to rely on this report. And that's kind of where we're at.
All right. So someone who's listening and saying, maybe I was a Marine, I was living there, I had headaches, I had, some problems, but I think they went away. Should they call an attorney and say, hey, you know what, here was my situation?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because we're dealing with chemicals that have such a latency period, before injuries manifest. Some things may be apparent on contact, the headaches, the skin rashes, things like that you'd get if you came in contact with a harmful chemical, right away. But what you don't realize is what happens, to your body and on a cellular level over the next decades due to that exposure. So someone was like, yeah, I do remember that, I didn't feel that great there, a lot of stomach problems, nauseas, all those things, but I think I'm fine now. Man, 2 years from now, they may have, kidney cancer, bladder cancer, any other kind of problem that, tens of thousands of other folks who had that same exposure have now. Everybody's a little different. I could get exposed to the same chemical. I may have a problem in 5 years. You may not manifest one for 11 years. It's just the way it goes.
All right. So a few months ago, the big news is that they were going to do this expedited pay program. What is that all about? Is there a deadline with that? What's happening with that?
No deadline. I mean, you have to have your claim filed, by August 10th of this year, 2024. But, everyone who gets their claim filed, what we're told, now we're not part of that process because the government, the Department of Navy and the DOJ are reviewing this, they look at every claim that comes through. And if they feel it meets their criteria for this EO option, this elective, payment option, they will reach out to the attorney or the claimant if they made the claim of themselves, and they will present an offer based on a predetermined, calculation. They look at, well, one, it's pretty narrow. I believe it's like bladder cancer, kidney cancer, liver cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, multiple myeloma, some end-stage kidney disease, renal diseases, and then like a scleroderma, another neurological disorder. So you have 8 or 9 injuries. If you don't have those, you're not going to qualify for the EO. It does not mean you don't have a case. It does not mean you won't get compensated down the road. It just means you won't get compensated right now because the government is only looking at those, 9 injuries. So say you have one of those injuries. There's a couple other points of criteria. The injury had to show itself within 35 years of your last exposure there. There's a couple things, but listen, man, an attorney can get through all that very quickly. If you have an injury, you need to file a claim. If you're like, man, I have all kind of other problems, I have pancreatic cancer, I have all these other issues that the government says I'm not paying right now, I will gladly file that claim. We'll just end up in court. We strongly believe that we have experts in place and the science will support just 3-4 times that number of injuries, and so I tell everyone, don't get discouraged if you don't fit inside the EO. I mean, that doesn't change my opinion of the case at all.
And what does the EO stand for?
Elective option.
Elective.
You can accept this early settlement value, be done with the case, get your money and go on your way. There's some other benefits as well. If you go the EO route, you won't have any kind of, liens, medical liens or anything. They're not going to come after that. It's not going to affect your benefits. And so, the whole picture, if you can put, a good pot of money in your pocket, not to worry about any kind of Medicare, Medicaid, any kind of other government agency coming back trying to say you owe us money for treatment you received all these years. So that's also a plus to it. But yeah, they're paying, like I said, anywhere from 100 to 550 would be the highest.
All right. So the government is, go ahead.
No, I'm saying for a lot of folks, they'll gladly take that. We have clients that we hope they get EO offers soon. They say, I would definitely take that amount of money if I gave it. If they gave it to me, I'm 78, 81 years old. Man, I don't have time to wait. I don't have 3-4 years. I want to get that money now. I want to do something for my grandkids. I want to do something I've always dreamed of. They're more than happy to do it. We have other folks who are like, absolutely not. That's an insult, for what they knew and how long they knew it. And we're just finding out about this. There's no money that can compensate me. I want to go all the way. They want to take their case all the way through the court system. So it just kind of falls. We leave it up to the clients. All we can do is present them with what's being offered, and they'll make their decision.
All right. So it sounds like the government has already basically made a statement that with certain injuries, with certain criteria, they're going to be willing to pay X, Y, and Z dollars, which is a little unusual for most litigations. Usually the defendants, whether it's the government or a pharmaceutical company, they're not going to make hey, we're going to pay X, Y, unless they're telling you they're going to pay you, $3,000 or some nominal amount. But you're also saying that we're going to go forward with trials and we're trying to get trials set. What would the purpose of trials be taking place if the government has already basically said they're going to be willing to pay X number of dollars and it's over $100,000? What's the general?
Increase the value of the cases. I mean, the consensus is these values are too low. Maybe we don't agree with the tier they have someone in. Like they've broken up into 2 tiers, tier 1 and tier 2. Obviously, tier 1, they put a higher priority on. Those folks are getting maybe a 50% increase over tier 2 for their injuries. But, I think one of the big injuries that we think will be easily relatable to the chemicals and the exposure these folks have is Parkinson's disease. Yeah. Man, we have a lot of those cases. I think we have over 600, 650 of those cases alone, and they're only being offered the tier 2 money. And when you're talking with family members, who are living with someone with Parkinson's, man, I'm telling you, you almost feel bad saying this is what the government's going to offer you. And so for people like that, we highly discourage them from accepting the money on the Parkinson's cases. We think nothing's a slam dunk in court, Greg, that, but we think that is an easily provable case that has extremely high values. And if we want to take them through court to let the government know, listen, if we keep getting jury verdicts and, multiple millions of dollars, these cases, you need to up your values, And so we think that we can increase the value of the cases by going through the litigation side.
All right. So last question. Let's say somebody that's in one of these in one of these cases is listening in, and they got Parkinson's. They're in horrible shape. They're hearing $500,000. They're like, no way, no how. I want my case tried. What is the process? Like, if it's me and I'm like, you're my attorney, I'm like, I want my case tried. What's the likelihood that you could get my case tried?
Right. So it's, I'd say it's high with the Parkinson's case. It's high. That's one of the first trials that the North Carolina court, what they're going to hear is a Parkinson's case. Like I said, the leadership that's in place there, they think the same way about Parkinson's cases. We have good relationships, a lot of those folks. If you have a super strong case, you've made it through the claims process. You've either waited that 6-month required time period we have to wait before we remove it and put it into court, or the government makes an offer to us and we can either accept it or reject it. Once that offer is made or rejected, we then can file you in court. So you still have to follow the same path as everyone else, go through the claims process, either wait your 6 months or wait for an offer to come and reject it. And then you can file your case in court just like you would expect, file a complaint, wait on the judge to rule, get in front of a jury, basically everything that folks are used to seeing at least on television. You're in that process. So, but we have the claims process first. But I tell you, man, good case, Parkinson's, the leadership is certainly on board with moving those cases to the front of the line. Heavy injury, death cases, And listen, man, they want to try as many as they can. And one of the things we want to do at some point, as these first couple cases kind of go through, is we want to try several cases at one time. So it's not unheard of in cases like this to try 6, 10, 15 plaintiffs at the same time, especially if we're dealing with the same injuries. So these cases might actually move a little faster than some cases when they get in the court system. You hear horror stories of years and years just sitting there waiting. This judge or the judges there made it pretty clear, man, that's not going to be the case here. They're going to either get stuff moving as quickly as they can, or they want these things settled as quickly as they can. But they're not going to let them just sit there for years and years and just take up their entire docket.
All right. Well, the good news is, Tyler, you passed the interview process and you have been selected as the regular update attorney on my Camp Lejeune featured for the year. So 3 months from now, put it in your calendar. I would imagine 3 months would be a good time for another update.
Absolutely, man. If something breaks, yeah, let's talk again, because it's always changing. It really is.
All right. And just in case people didn't really understand, you mentioned other attorneys, but you and your firm are going to be handling a bunch of these cases. So what's the best way if somebody likes you, they want to talk to you, maybe even hire you? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Man, probably an email would be the best thing to do. Send an email to tvail@shunnarahvail.com. You can look us up online. We've got phone numbers everywhere, I'm sure. Yeah, listen, man, we're happy to talk with anybody. It's an important thing. Just remember, we're there's still a little bit of time, but August is going to be here quick, And so if you think you have a claim or a family member has a claim, yeah, give us a shout. We'll certainly try to help you.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Cut to the Chase. Tyler Vail, thank you for coming on and updating us. I'm going to put your information in the show notes, and have a good day. Go back to your 3M deadline. I know you got a lot of work to do there.
A little bit. Yeah, Greg, thanks so much.
All right, my man. Be well.
That's all for this episode of Cut to the Chase. But before you go, will you open up your podcast app and give us a 5-star review? You can also leave a comment about what you liked most or other topics you'd like us to cover. And please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming shows. Thanks, everybody. Be safe out there.